Good morning and welcome to the program. It is the dialogue. Every Saturday at around this time we come to look at stories that made the headlines through the week, and we put those stories into context, and they are matters of national importance. My name is Simapolo. I welcome you to the show. You must have had a good week. We of course celebrate those that have achieved in this week. We commiserate with those that are going through tough times. We know we are still in tough times of COVID-19, but again it was a week of mourning. We were mourning the death of the fallen General, Major General Paul Okech, the former Deputy Inspector General of Police, and he was laid to rest just yesterday in his home district of Padel. We will have a few minutes to talk about him. And again, in this week, Uganda received 51 refugees from Afghanistan. It is an arrangement between the two governments of Uganda and the United States of America to host some of the American collaborators, the nationals or the citizens of Afghanistan in Uganda for some time, they say, and then they will be relocated to probably United States or any other country. And that's probably another issue. We'll give some minutes. And the main topic for discussion this morning is the insecurity that is going on in Greater Masaka. So far, the reports we have are telling us that more than 22 people, about 22 people have lost lives, have been killed by unknown people in a period of just 3 weeks. That is really, really serious, and we will also discuss that particular matter. In the studios this morning to discuss these issues, I have Mr. David Alida. David Alida is the Secretary General for the People's Progressive Political Party. Welcome to the program, Mr. David.
Thank you so much, and good morning to the viewers. I am glad to be here, and I hope we will have a fruitful discussion.
Welcome once again, David, and we've again we have in the studios Mr. Wilberforce Seriazi, the spokesperson for the Alliance for National Transformation Political Party. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Apollo, for hosting me here today. I'm honored to be hosted at Salt TV. I greet you all, the listeners out there, and we hope to have a fruitful discussion today.
Well, thank you so much, guests in the studios and our viewers. Now we kick off the show. It is the dialogue, and my name is Simapolo. Let me start with Mr. Wilberforce Seriazi. Yes. Let's talk about briefly about Major General, now Lieutenant General, the fallen General Paul Okech.
Yeah.
Few minutes.
Well, first of all, as an individual, I think that first of all, I'd like to console or commiserate with the family of the late General Okech, and also the UPDF family. The little information that we've been receiving as a country this week about the work of General Okech, I think is a testimony that we still have determined, brave Ugandans that are willing to die for their country. I think that General Okech, from what I've heard, these messages this week, was an exceptional soldier, for the country. But for the country, I think there's a big loss in General Okech. As a family, it can't be emphasized. I think the family and the area they actually land has lost a gallant son. So really, it is sad. It's a sad time in our country to lose such a person. At this time, he was a young man. I noticed, still a young man. I think that with his record, he was going to go very far in his career. So we'll miss him for that. The only challenge that we have as a country is the deployments. I think that a person of that caliber, Major General Okech, who had proved to be highly qualified, highly skilled in that, militarily skilled, being shifted into the police force as IGP, I think that there are many contradictions in the way he would respond to orders. Because as far as we are concerned, Uganda police many times appears to be working on orders of an individual, especially when we come into our political arena. Therefore, to get a military man, strong, brave, ready to fight for his country, place him in a position where he gets orders sometimes that are not in the interest of the country, but of the survival regime or an individual, I imagine that it becomes a bit challenging for him and the other military generals who eventually go to police. Well, I know that it is not illegal. The law allows to deploy, different people in these forces. But at an individual level of a military man, I think it's challenging for them. So it's unfortunate that we lost him. We didn't get to know how he would have managed police, how his feelings were about serving in police. But I think generally to say that the country lost a gallant person.
The short stint he had in the office of the IGP, Deputy IGP, don't you think he has left behind a mark?
The mark, I would say, is more identified in the military. And in as far as police, unfortunately, has been there for a very short time. And in a little bit of time when we have, many controversies, elections and all these things. But I think that he has made his mark and his name and all the admiration more in the military.
Oh, yeah.
I was watching the burial ceremonies on TV and I heard I think the former president of Ethiopia speaking about him. I think they owe
Somalia.
Somalia. They owe him a lot because he was very instrumental in pacifying Mogadishu. So I think the mark really is in him as a general in the military, rather than an officer of police.
All right, thank you so much. David, briefly talk about the foreign so-called Lion of Mogadishu.
Yeah, by the time now Lieutenant General, the late Lokech passed on, he had definitely made a mark.
Really?
First as a soldier, he excelled, and we can hear from the testimonies, people who were with him, not only in Somalia, but even his work in Russia when he was a military attaché there. And if you followed him well, you would actually see that he was a man who knew what he was doing and was determined to, do his work well. And so I must add my voice to the many that Uganda has actually lost a gallant son in Lokech. And I do also commiserate with the family at a time like this. It is so difficult a moment that such a man at his age still, he was still quite a young man, he passes on, leaving the family behind, relatively young family, and also to the greater northern region. I usually hate to say so, because I do not subscribe to politics of regions and tribes and the like, but we cannot rule out the fact that yes, he's from Acholi, or he was from Acholi, and he did quite an outstanding job there. I looked at the president's speech yesterday. He also got to know Lokech when he was making interceptions to the rebel activities in that part of Acholi.
Right.
So that alone tells me he loved his people, he was working for his people, and for that matter for Uganda as a whole. So Uganda has missed Lokech, and we must agree. perhaps he should have been or would have turned out to be a good, deputy IGP if he had served a little longer. But that said, I also want to agree with my colleague here that this country, the leadership, usually messes up people, more so those in the armed forces. You may be excellent as an army man, but because by and large, more so in times of elections, the leadership tends to use these forces to protect their stay in power. They'll always put people in a line which may, in one way or the other, tarnish their names, because I want to be honest, people have got mixed feelings about Lokech. And these mixed feelings are basically coming from, just the appointment as deputy IGP. Before that, not many people really, had negatives about Lokech. Maybe many did not even know him. But for the time that he was in police, there are mixed reactions from the public. Others, unfortunately, celebrate.
Yeah, others think he did a good job.
While there are those who actually think he did a good job. He came in at a time of election, and in the background, there was this that he had excelled in chasing away the Al-Shabaab people in the center of Somalia. And then we had what in the president's view was, elements of terrorists within Kampala. And that is the time he brings this very fine soldier to take charge, to wipe off the so-called terrorists. And in this case, the terrorists are opposition people, Ugandans here, those who do not or did not support the president. And so it was very, very easy to look at Lokech as a person who had been brought to, wipe out those who are opposing the president. And that, throw a little negative light around him. But even then, I must say that he was already standing out as a very effective soldier, a very effective maybe policeman for that matter, now that he was in the police forces. I saw his work at the time when Katumba Wamala, Honorable, was shot at. You saw he spearheaded the investigations. I saw him on TV doing the things that I had not seen before in the investigations, trying to relate this and that, pointing out people and saying this one is this one. Some
corroborating
level,
evidence.
Yes, some level of an in-depth investigation to try and bring out, facts. Now, that is something that I had not seen in the past.
That is the footage from the burial ceremonies yesterday from Padel district, our viewers. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so I think that he was beginning to bring, or rather to introduce in police a certain, working ethics, working style that I thought would be really, good. And for this short time, he will be remembered for that. That said, again, the death of Lokech, for me, goes beyond just what we say. It bothers me that generals die in the manner that these people are dying. And let's face it, there are lots of suspicions around the death of some of these people. And I want us to go back a little. In the recent history, we lost Kazini Kazini was an outstanding soldier. We all know that.
I think that 2009 around there.
About that. He died under very, very funny circumstances, so I can say. Such a fine soldier, trained, goes to, you know, some small house of a lady somewhere, a lady of middle age, with no military background that is known. And then the next thing we hear is that she hit Kazini and Kazini is dead. It leaves a lot to be desired. Aronda Nyakairima also dies under very funny circumstances. Nothing comes out to explain to the satisfaction of Ugandans what these deaths, you know, is all about.
You forget Nobo Mayombo.
Nobo Mayombo.
In 2000, I think 3 or 2.
Dying under mysterious circumstances. Oketa. Talk about Oshora. There is a list, you know. So for me, Lokech joins into that list of people who die under very mysterious circumstances. I mean, it is possible. And I am not necessarily saying that there is something that is so fishy about the death of Lokech. We are told he fell off a stool and then got a fracture, and the next thing was a clot, and Lokech is gone. But I mean, you sit back and think and say, really, there are people who fall off buildings and what, and break and what, and they survive. Now, falling off a stool.
Doctors have actually, even through the postmortem, the autopsy report, they have made it clear that this can happen, really, that if you have a fracture and then a blood clot can develop and suddenly move to your lungs, and that's how it happens anyway. I'm giving you what came out of.
Just to
you can join in.
I think we also need to look at the bigger picture. Of course, there's been a joke on, you know what, a man of that height would want to pick on a stool. I thought he could
to fix a bulb.
He would be able to fix everything with his height. But that aside, I think the bigger picture is we should be asking ourselves as a country whether it is helping the country to militarize the police or not. Because General Lokech is just one of the top leaders. But we know that even in the lower level police officers, many of them are from the military. So the bigger picture, which we need to ask ourselves, is it helping the country to militarize the police? And where does that leave the official roles of police of the country? Because you'd imagine, we've had, I think General Katumba was in police.
He's an army officer.
We had General Kaihura, General Lokech, Mosei, Sabiti, I think Brigadier. And that in the lower levels there are also many. We actually we notice that many come from PGB or presidential, whatever it's called now. Guard Brigade or forces, special forces.
A special guard brigade.
Into the police. Maybe I am naive. Maybe it will help the country. Maybe not. But we need to also, at a bigger picture, try to examine that. Where does that leave the police officer who is trained to do that? Because the duties of these two institutions are quite different. The army is meant to protect us against any aggression. Police is meant to keep law and order, protect our property. There are very many things into that whole docket. Investigations, criminal investigations, community policing. So you have a person who's been raising through the ranks in the police service, from a CID, DPC, and then you find that at a certain level they are clogged. Those are positions for generals in the army. Does it give morale to police officers in police? If I finish university and I'm thinking of career, do I really want to go to police? Because I know eventually it is a military outfit. So we need to examine whether that helps.
Okay.
And that will go into the next question of what's happening in Masaka.
Okay. Mr. Seriaze, I think he raised an issue.
Yes.
Because what you're talking about is a bigger discussion that actually we have had in the past.
Yes.
But he raised a question of bringing those fine soldiers into the police force,
Yes.
and then they end up their name tainted.
Yes.
Do you agree that that is happening?
Simply because for me, I think that the roles are quite different. And the training is quite different. General Kaihura, when he was still in, I think before he joined the police, he was in what they used to call something part of the revenue.
Yeah, revenue protection.
Revenue protection.
Something.
And he had a lot of praises. And he was a very good soldier that everyone admired about, smart smuggling and all this. When he came into the military, into the police, by the time he left, I think he had even gotten problems with his boss. Simply because the roles are different. The military is trained to take orders from above, and you don't ask why. And they handle issues militarily. Police is a civil outfit. You take time to investigate.
They have the same boss, the same commander. The commander-in-chief is one.
The commander-in-chief is one, but the way of taking orders is different. Police does not just take orders. Police carries out investigation, does research. It takes time to build a case in police. The army will react immediately. Yeah. When they tell you that there is
but they also have the military intelligence desk, the CMI.
Yeah, they have the military intelligence, but to deal with military issues, police CID is different, dealing with civilians and how to curb crime before you detect crime before people commit offenses. So I think that the different people my colleague has mentioned about why we see them in bad light is because they bring the kind of training of the military into police. Because the military, once you get orders, you must crush whatever it is. That's the way military reacts. Police should not react that way. So I think the problem why these gentlemen from the military are faces the training.
The training. Well, it is the discussion probably will put across in our subsequent programs, but we commiserate once again with the family of Major General, now Lieutenant General Paul Okech, and the UPDF fraternity at large. We say may his soul rest in peace, and it is the dialogue. My name is Tusimapolo. We have Mr. Seriaze Wilberforce, the spokesperson for the Alliance for National Transformation, and we have Mr. David Alida. He's the Secretary General for the People's Progressive Party, PPP. We are looking at issues that made headlines through the week. That aside, 51 Afghan refugees were received this week in Uganda. An arrangement between the two governments, US government and the Ugandan government, to host some of those US collaborators. I think it's quite unfair, but I'll start with Mr. Seriaze. Your boss and your party are not so comfortable with this particular arrangement. I saw what Major General Mugisha said about these Afghan refugees coming, issues about security issues around them. Speak about it in a few minutes.
Well, first of all, as a party, and even Ugandans should be able to understand the problems in Afghanistan. And we feel for them as a country, because being a refugee in your own country, people are running away to survive. Basically, to survive human rights abuses, to survive, being murdered and all these kind of things. So under the international protocols of refugees, I think these people must be welcome anywhere for their safety.
Especially if you are signatory to those conventions and
Uganda
treaties.
is a signatory to these conventions. So to start with, in terms of the legal framework, and the nature of the problems in Afghanistan, we feel for the refugees, for the Afghan people who may go under attack by the Taliban regime. However, the choice of the country, Uganda. First of all, Uganda, I think, is the biggest host of refugees
in Africa.
In the world.
In Africa, not in the world.
Yeah, in Africa. We have about 1 million, over
1.4
refugees from all over our neighbors. We have those from Rwanda, from Congo, from Southern Sudan. We also have our own internally displaced people caused by these natural disasters in Bududa, in Kasese. So there is a huge burden that the country has to bear to manage the already existing refugees in the country. And so for you now to get other refugees, especially from a country like Afghan, I do not know what analysis the government has made and security concerns, because refugees from conflict areas usually are like, what are they called? They transmit, many times they can transmit the conflict into the host countries. Now, if you have the conflict of Afghanistan, of the Taliban and all these international
declared
terrorist groups, to host them in your country, you don't know who will be following those refugees here from that conflict. And therefore you can easily become a target when they're targeting them. You can easily become a target of the bigger conflicts that you're probably not aware of, and you may not be prepared to handle them. So I think that hosting refugees from Afghanistan is a sensitive issue, which I'm not sure how government came to conclude on that, but I think that we would not have rushed into hosting them. One, we may not have many capacities to protect them. It would be easier for them to be hosted in the US, in the UK, or the neighboring countries in that Asian area. You know, there's so many countries there, Pakistan, Kazakhstan, and so on and so forth. But all the way to Africa and to Uganda, I hope that they made the right analysis, but it has got its own challenges.
It has its own
burden
challenges.
On government. We're already burdened by the refugee numbers here. They come along with social and social issues, social and cultural issues, and then they can also transmit the conflict.
Okay, maybe Mr. Wilberforce, if you're talking about security concerns, maybe, but what we know is that the US government will cater for every need or needs of these people while they are here. That's what we've been told. So the issue of the burden may not be relevant here, probably, if it is the case.
Well, if there is an arrangement like that, that's okay. But we're more concerned about the security issues around refugees of that nature and the nature of conflicts that they have. To be hosted here could be a
challenge.
Our country to
Okay, Mr. David, I think you can weigh in from there. He talks about security concerns, but again, what we know is that the US government, the US president talked to His Excellency the President, and probably they may have found Uganda the safest place to host, because what we now know is that some of these people that are being brought here were in the former government in Afghanistan, which actually goes into what you're saying, that they may be followed by the Taliban.
First of all, the Taliban are extremists.
True.
That we know. They could be comparable to the Al-Shabaabs and, of this world. And, first, it is important for us to appreciate that, yes, the situation in Afghanistan is not a good one.
Yeah, true.
And humans like we are, we should reach out and help where we can. And Uganda has a history of, hosting refugees. You've
and
already,
being hosted.
Mentioned about that. But in this particular case, I do not want to, to rush to that point of refugees. I want to take them by their word that it is more like a stopover as they prepare to take, these people wherever
They're in transit.
they will take them. They're in transit. And they found it wise that they should first make a stop here. So far, just about 51 have come. But going by the communication that we've received from government, we're expecting up to 2,000.
Yeah.
So there are many more who are yet, to come. So Uganda being a signatory to the protocols that you have already, mentioned, it is right. We shouldn't be questioning even why they should be here, because we signed that it is okay, we can be part of an arrangement such as that, and that's okay. They can't be here, but also as a country, we should be in position to analyze deeply who we want to host, and should this go to a level where they become refugees, we must take into account the question that my brother raises, the question of security. By the time one becomes a refugee, it means that he or she is in disagreement with the regime that is back at home. And it also means that if you stayed there, then your life is at risk. The regime is not with you.
Yeah.
It is a common practice that, regimes that have got extreme tendencies, such as the Taliban's, will follow you wherever you go.
Really?
They do. They do. And you don't want situations where you put your country, you put your people in line of targets.
In the line of fire.
In the line of fire. So if the Afghanistans are coming and we are told it is transit, stopover, but it turns out that they actually become refugees, then the country should worry.
Okay.
Then the government should think beyond at least what they are communicating. There is every danger that comes with that.
Well, David, I think by the time our government decided and agreed to host them, probably they had time to think through all these issues. But again, they still remain valid and up for discussion. But don't you think, gentlemen, this is an approval that Uganda probably has capacity to handle such a sensitive and security situations? If of all they look at Uganda as one that can actually host these people who are coming from a hostile zone, probably with repercussions, and take a decision that may have such repercussions that we are discussing today. Isn't it an approval?
No.
Probably that we can do it, we can handle even the consequences.
It is not an approval because I do not have references to, circumstances where we have very ably fought off people.
We have managed
like
terrorists home and probably beyond our borders in Somalia and elsewhere.
We have not necessarily been a target. It's a different thing to send soldiers to Somalia as a contingent of
peacekeeping mission
to do the peacekeeping there. It's a completely different thing with when you're targeted. We got just a bit of it here
in 2010.
In 2010, the Al-Shabaab, they blew up people here.
Yeah, 79 died.
79 people died. Now that's just an indicator. We did not stop that before it happened. We are only told, like now, that yesterday or the other day, before the burial of Lieutenant General Lokech, there were some suicide bombers
in Padel.
in Padel who were got with some homemade possibly. You know, we're not talking of a level such as that. We are talking terrorism here. People who have defeated forces like of the US and the like.
Even,
you know?
Was it the other night? The Taliban blew, I mean, a bomb went off in Kabul and
a number of US soldiers actually died. A number of them. So you cannot convince me that we are better placed. You know, we are better trained.
Okay, unlike the other refugees that we have from the neighboring countries, I think there we have direct negotiations and planning with our neighboring governments. But clearly this was some kind of, I don't want to call it a deal, but negotiation with the US. And therefore that implies that there were some considerations. They could be of a strategic nature, they could be financial consideration, basically for the regime. So that is different. It is different when you host neighbors who have problems.
Okay.
You assess and have capacity. It is very different when a bigger boy in the international politics convinces you to assist and, you know, host people. We definitely may not have the capacity if we were targeted by
the Taliban,
by you know these terrorist groups. We may not have the capacity. But we hope that our government has gone through this and made the right assessment, because it is just human enough to assist freeing people from death. It is just human enough.
Okay, I think we have to wind up on this. Do you have anything more you can add on?
You know, gentlemen, we are dealing with an issue that is also very, very political, and I wouldn't want to just let it pass.
Political?
Very political.
Okay.
Uganda in the recent past has had a very, very bad picture in as far as human rights are concerned in the international community. You will recall that moving into elections and even shortly after, the government was actually struggling to try and prove itself to the world that you know, they are who they say they are. They have tried to redeem their image, you know, to the international community. And for me, this is just one of the ways that the political leadership in this country is trying to, you know, prove relevance. It's trying to see how they can work with the US as a country. They are trying to be the good people.
Really?
And they have survived like that. There are lots of things that come with hosting people like this. I mean, let's face it, internationally, you need to relate with some of these countries for you to survive, for you to hold power. And so it should not be taken for granted that this is just because Uganda loves to host refugees. It comes with money, it comes with lots of things, including being in the good books
of the big boys.
I remember vividly when the government spokesperson, the Fonopondos, were rubbishing the US and telling them you cannot determine things in our country, you can, you know, at that moment, because they wanted to find their way. Today, they want to talk like, you know, they are in very good books with the US and trying to do the things that please them. So,
but how well is it handled? I mean, you can't always be, I mean, clashing and in conflict with it goes into the foreign policy of governments that you at one point you have to relate and at some point you have to disagree.
No, you don't do it this way. Not in, you know, matters of refugees from countries that are considered red areas. No, you correct your image by correcting the politics.
At home.
At home.
Okay.
If your human rights record is, you know, that bad, correct it. And you saw the president recently trying
he made a statement. He's made an address.
That image to the country and saying, I don't know why people are being beaten. Forgetting that he was praising the same army for disciplining the Bob Wines very properly when he beat them up in Arua and all that. So he's trying to redeem his personal image and the image of the NRM. And it's understandable.
Not the image of Uganda as a country.
Well,
I think it is not bad redeeming the image of the country.
In this case, it is not about the country. The country, Uganda, has no problem. The problem is with the leadership in the country right now.
Okay.
They're the ones causing all this. When you're beaten, it's not Uganda beating you. It is the people in charge who are beating you. So there is a lot more that needs to be read in this beyond just saying it's a good gesture. We have refugees coming. No, it goes far beyond that.
Mr. Seriazi, do you agree that there is what we know, there is some financial or economical relevance to this matter, but leave alone that and leave alone the issue of the concerns of security. Do you think this matter is a bit political? It's about, like he's saying, trying to redeem that image after committing gross human rights violations and all that?
Maybe not. But you see, these issues of international refugees are played within the international relations of countries. But in that area of international relationships, yes, they are the big boys, the weaker countries, and so on and so forth. But like my colleague says, what is most important is the image in your own country, is the security of your own people, is the provision of services, the democracies in your own country, is what plays a lot in the international and the economic opportunities that you have. Those are things that play a lot. But when it comes to a big boys determining where to put refugees from wherever they have, I think that you must be strong enough in the diplomatic relationships to say no for different regions. I don't think that Uganda is the only country in Africa which would have hosted these refugees. Probably they should have gone to South Africa, Nigeria, wherever. But it appears that there is some kind of negotiations for some consideration, whether it's financial, whether it's for strategic reasons, whether it's for military, military assistance, and so we don't know. The government has not declared all this. But we think that cannot override the threats that we are thinking about as Ugandans. You get money, you get some, maybe military equipment or whatever, strategic positioning in the country. How does that directly benefit the Ugandans? Rather than having a threat of being targeted because of the nature of conflict from Afghanistan. That, for me, that's really the area that they need to concern.
That Uganda shouldn't have allowed Afghan refugees to come in, because I take the position of Major General retired Mugisha Muntu.
I think the general was saying that it should have been slow. It is not a decision that should have been hasty, because there are many options. We have countries that have got capabilities, more capabilities to protect these Afghans, especially the European countries and the Americans. They have the capacity to protect and to look after them, even the distances, even the cultural differences, which would have been safer in those areas. But coming all the way to Africa, I think would have been a bit slow to consider having these refugees.
Okay, hope if at all it is true that they are in transit, they will be here for some time. That makes it a bit safer anyway. Don't you think so?
Yeah, and that's why I say that I want to take them by their word, that it is transit. They are being hosted, if my memory serves me well, at least those of Kama in Tebe somewhere, in some hotels. And I pray and hope that indeed they'll be here for a short time, and they'll be taken to the countries where they'll be more comfortable. That does not necessarily mean that Uganda or some of us do not want to host refugees. No. Like we already said, Uganda hosts so many refugees in millions. We've not had problems with that. This particular one raises eyebrows. And so we must be extremely careful how we go about it. So the shorter they stay, the better.
The shorter they stay, the better. And it is Mr. Alira David who said that. The program is The Dialogue. My name is Simapolo. David Alira is the Secretary General for the People's Progressive Party. That is a political party. And Mr. Serias Wilberforce is the spokesperson for the Alliance for National Transformation political party. And of course we are running towards the break, but we should of course start on our main topic for discussion this morning, the insecurity happening around Greater Masaka. What we've been told is that even last night 2 people were killed. Even last night, that's the latest reports that have but they haven't been yet confirmed. But the latest reports that I have is that 2 other people, a woman and a young kid, were murdered last night. Serious.
Oh, we're going for a break. Well, I think that it is very scaring for the country to have this kind of wave in Masaka. I think it's a period of 2 weeks, about 2 weeks. Almost every day we are losing someone. And it's happening at a time when we have curfew. Because I thought that because of the curfew, the crime rates at night had reduced. And I think that was the clear assessment even in Kampala. Because it then becomes risky for criminals to also move alone in the night. It is risky for them, but it is also easy for security organs to get them, because there's no confusion. You must be the only person moving at night. So if you have 2 weeks of this spate of violence, of killings in Masaka, there are 3 areas we need to look around. What are the capabilities of our Uganda police force? One, what's the word? In trying to, the word has gone. But the police, even before the crime happens, must have the capacity through its intelligence to detect the people that want to commit this
detect crime.
Now you have a spate of 2 weeks, people are being killed every day. Police has not yet figured out, in my opinion, where all this is coming out. They have not yet detected where these crimes are coming from. Is it an external attack, maybe from a neighboring country? Is it just a gang, a criminal gang in Masaka? Police seems not to have that capacity. And sometimes when we talk about the politics in this country, is that for some reason police can easily detect political opponents just planning to move on the street to demonstrate. Within a few hours, you'll have all these lorries coming
probably Mr. Serias, it is because you politicians, when you're planning a demonstration or a protest, you announce and you even invite us as media to cover.
Yes, but my issue is how the preparedness of police in reacting to political matters. It's very prepared. It even has enough resources. The tear gas, whatever it is, they have it and they respond quickly. But this one, that every night 2 people are killed, 1 person is killed for a spate of 2 periods. And the CID, I am not in, maybe we don't have a lot of knowledge, We do not know how far they have progressed in determining this source of criminal activity. I think there's a challenge in police.
There's a challenge in police, but Mr. Sirias, we have to go for a break.
Yeah.
The program is The Dialogue, and from where you stopped,
Yes.
I think you were talking about the system. You're talking about the capabilities of police, especially the intelligence.
Yes.
We have at district level, we have
you have a PISO.
A PISO is a parish.
Yes.
We have almost at every level we have
Yes.
an officer who is in charge of intelligence.
Yes.
Why is that happening again? We will come from a short break, and that's where we will start off. We're looking at the insecurity happening in Greater Masaka. You must not leave us. You must stay on Sol TV. The program is The Dialogue. Welcome from the break. It is The Dialogue. My name is Simapolo. We are into the next hour, and we are looking at issues of insecurity happening in Greater Masaka. The latest we have, though they are still unconfirmed reports, indicate that 2 other people died last night in an attack. An old lady and a kid died in another attack in the Greater Masaka region, courtesy of these gangs, criminal gangs, who use rudimentary ways to kill residents, using pangas, using clubs, and all those issues. And the question is still, who are these people? Why isn't it clear? What is the objective? What has government done to stop these killings that have now claimed more than 20 people in a period of just a month? My name is Simapolo. I have David Alida, and he is the Secretary General for People's Progressive Party, PPP political party, and we have Wilberforce Seriazi, the spokesperson for Alliance for National Transformation political party. David, briefly, what is it that is happening to our country?
You know, anyway, first of all, let me say I sympathize with the people of Masaka and the neighboring districts, what we call the Greater Masaka. It is unfortunate what is happening there. I grew up hearing stories of the activities of a rebel outfit then called the 9th October movement. It did not come a lot to prominence, but in the areas where they operated in the eastern part of the country, the stories you hear about it were not good, because the targets then were not the military units. There were, the locals and people who are innocent. And they killed quite a couple of people. Thank God government responded then, and they were wiped out. The stories, when you listen to, sends shivers. And I can only imagine what the people in Masaka are going through. But again, even as we say that, I want to think that none of us is safe.
Yeah, true.
One part of the country, however small it is, if you see things like that happening, you cannot claim to be safe wherever you are, because you do not know what happens next, which place that happens next. So it's unfortunate what is happening. Now, personally, I want to look at the Masaka scenario in 2 levels. There is the element of where this is coming from and why it is happening that way. And then there is the second aspect of the response from government, from police, generally. Now, if I address my mind to the first aspect of it, it is a little mysterious. Why are people being killed in Masaka? Why Masaka? You know, and possibly not any other part of the country right now. And who are being killed now? You realize that these are no more simple Ugandans
Helpless.
who I want to think are innocent, peasants, helpless people. And they are dying, you know, for no reason. You cannot meaningfully place their death to, you know, to anything about themselves. At the beginning, there was an assumption that the Masaka killing is because of land. There were elements who were speaking to that effect. But I mean, land grabbing and land problems is beyond just Masaka. It is across. Why is it not happening anywhere? We have seen people dying in Apa, in northern Uganda, over land issues, but it is clear.
Yeah.
You can trace and understand why they are dying the way they have died.
And actually, the attackers in the issue of Apa actually come out and speak that
Precisely.
we disagree with you. This is our land. You must
leave.
vacate.
You know, so you see people who are fighting for a cause, for what they believe in. They think you're simply being unfair to them. But in the case of Masaka, that's why I call it a mystery. The people who are dying are poor, innocent people. What that then tells me is that there is something beyond just what we are saying. This death could actually be a communication being sent out there by a group of people, and they are organized.
Yeah.
This is not work of a disorganized group. I want to remind us that the night before yesterday, or just yesterday actually, by the way, towards this morning to be precise, there was an attempt by the same people to, I think, cause another round of killing. Unfortunately, we're now hearing reports that possibly they went ahead and even killed others. But in the first instance, it was foiled by the police. What I find interesting is that the police foiled that process, but the silence, you know, escaped. None of them was arrested. That speaks to people who understand what they are doing. They know what they are doing, they plan for it, and go and execute their plan. The other thing that we need to take note of, and this could be also in relation to what you said earlier, when the Masaka killings started, except in the very recent past, recent days, these people could actually warn.
Yeah, they had to drop.
Yeah, they would even drop letters and say we are coming for you.
And they come.
And they actually come. And for me, that is why I related it in the very first place with the 9th October, you know, movement. Because that is how they were operating. They write letters, come and drop next to your door and say tomorrow, actually, we are coming for you.
They usually issued lists of their targets.
Of the targets. And you can tick them. So you see people who actually plan what they are doing. And this was the case also in Masaka. That they would warn people and say, we are coming, and they actually go ahead and come and kill. You get it? Now, there is something that we need to look into deeply there. That group of people doing this to the innocent people, who are they? and why.
Who are they and why is the biggest question we are still interrogating. Mr. Seriaz.
Yes, please.
We're talking about refugees coming from Afghanistan, but we may soon have internally displaced people in Greater Masaka, because the latest I heard is that now people are planning to leave their houses, congregate in probably one room,
For churches, for schools.
where they can be safe, because these assailants target people who are vulnerable, maybe older people who live alone who are lonely, live alone in in their houses alone, or few of them. They don't target families that are those extended families who sleep together, and actually they attack at night. Why? Why is it happening? Why do you think it is happening?
You know what I think is that detecting crime starts with intelligence, collecting of intelligence, and that is the basic role of police. And that's why sometimes you even have what we call community policing, where police must interact freely and in a friendly manner with the population. That's the only way police can be able to pick intelligence information which can help in detecting and curbing of crime. What we are progressively seeing in this country, I think there is a breakdown in relationships between the police force and the citizens, and that's a major problem. Citizens are starting to see police with suspicion and fear, and that will block police from accessing information that can help to curb crime. For example, as we discussed earlier, police has got, government structures have got intelligence officers at different levels. But unfortunately, they are all exposed. Everyone knows who the intelligence officer of a district is, who the intelligence officer of a parish is, a piece of Giso. These people are known. One, I think police should be able to cover them by training, or themselves not to come out openly, so that people don't know who you are, and that helps to access information, to pick information that can help police. That said, it is also possible that this is a gang, an organized group, whether it's just a criminal gang, whether it is a political political group that just wants to commit crimes, is also a different story. But if there was enough intelligence sharing, both the military intelligence and the police intelligence, we would by now know what this group is all about. And that would help police whether to call upon the military to reinforce it in its operation, so we can clearly know that we are dealing with the rebel group, we are dealing with a cult, some kind of cult, religious cult which believes in killing people, or it's just a criminal gang. We should be able to get that information. You can't tell me, you can't convince me that for 2 weeks nobody in Masaka actually knows some of these people in Masaka.
Are they ghosts?
They can't be ghosts. They should be having some relatives or some friends, but it appears that there is no connection between the security services and the population to give this information. So what I think is important now is for the security forces to go back on the drawing board, plan how to interact with the communities in this process of detecting and responding to these criminal activities. And it should be easier, really, during a period where we have curfew. If everyone is supposed to be in the house by 7 in the evening, where are the security organs in the whole night to see people moving around, probably with their pangas and all these kind of things? So there's a breakdown which must be worked on, building trust and confidence between the police and security organs with the population, and also the training of these intelligence officers. They should not expose themselves. You already said that you have functions in the villages where the district intelligence officer is actually the chief guest, and everyone knows, okay, that's the intelligence officer of the district. I think there needs to be difference in covering these intelligence officers.
Okay, David, this is not the first time such a or similar trends of crime is happening in Greater Masaka. Actually started off, I think, in 2016 during the General Kale Kaihura's time as the IGP, and eventually you remember how he camped in that area, and it culminated into the killing of Chidawalime and his group, who were suspected to be the culprits in that gang. What else are you saying in this? You talked about the question of why in Masaka. Can you answer that question you asked, or we'll ask it, Mr. Seriaz?
This thing is disturbing, actually. Yes, I recall pretty well 2016, the spate of, killings that were
Bijambia.
Yeah, in that Masaka.
Yeah, even the Entebbe, Wakiso.
And the response then was that eventually there was a linkage between those killings and the people who were shooting the Czechs and some of the key figures that died, and eventually being linked to even the ADF.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's not long since we got the reports of the army, repassing the advances of ADF in the western part of the country around Kasese area and the like. So I don't want to think that, or I rather hope that this killing is not related to the same. We had General Katumba shot. The linkage was again with the ADF. And there were arrests made. It is not long, and the Masaka killings are beginning again. I want to hope that Wakiso is safe.
Okay.
Because it has now tended to take that, that path. Now, for me, my colleague here ably responds to the question of how the government is responding and the way it should actually respond, using the intelligence networks, the police and all that, and even giving the free advice is giving, saying, look here, you need to protect some of these people. But I still have a big gap with the genesis of this. Because unless we get to understand where this is coming from, it will be very difficult
but
to
David,
deal with it.
To understand that exactly goes into what Mr. Serias talked about, the system. The intelligence systems and the criminal intelligence services and all that. Is it about the breakdown of the system, or what do you think?
One of the things that this government prides on is, intelligence, security. That. That is what the Museveni government prides in more than anything else. They have been effective in securing this country. He has professionalized the army. He has done all this. And indeed, he has set up a network of what you would call the intelligence system that you referred to, right from the top up to the bottom. And indeed, we all know that at parish level, there is an intelligence person.
Yeah.
So is sub-county, district, and all this. So the network is big and it is very well built. Now, even when I agree that these people need to be protected, in intelligence, you don't work alone.
Yeah.
You can be a figure and say, yes, I am the, the district, intelligence
officer.
You're a figure. But you have a network of people you're working with beyond yourself.
I hope they have informers. They are called informers.
Precisely, they should be having, or else then that system would be dead. So I want to think that the president I know, when it comes to question of intelligence, the effectiveness of the army, the police, the way he has always put it, there should be that network. There should be informers. So then the question for me is, why is this happening? And we don't know, just like government seem not to know. Is it really just because that, network of intelligence is weak? What are they doing in the day-to-day? You cannot have an intelligence officer at a parish level networked with a few informers. And you tell me that 1 month down the road, people are being killed every day. And they cannot very, very meaningfully, tell where this is coming from. So it sheds a lot of doubt. It brings us to imaginations that people can think are wrong. But I mean, we're not then limited to thinking that it is just that. We begin now to think outside the box. Could it be deliberate? That even the government could be knowing? Or are there some people taking advantage of the weak system? Let me draw your attention to this, and I could be wrong. In Kasese, there were a line of killings that were there for a while. At that time, the people around Kasese were known to be opposition diehards. Maybe you will say I'm trying to be political.
You're talking about the Chichwambo massacres of the 90s?
All that. Bring it even up to the recent Eluelu, killings. That relate to the, The people of Masaka were known to be opposition leaders. Rather opposition leaning.
They are
very strong. It has changed a little in the most recent election. NRM has penetrated a bit there. They faced very, very serious, consequences to that, including the attack in the Mumbere, palace. That was because they were not for the government at the time. Masaka.
It is your opinion that probably.
I did say that because the system is not bringing us to speed on the happenings, it makes us begin to think outside the box. Because why are things happening the way they are happening with all this network of intelligence, army, police all around? You get it? So we begin to think beyond the box and say, why? And once we go outside the box, we are at liberty to, to look into a number of factors and begin to relate them to make sense out of it. Now, for me, when I sit and see the response that Masaka, Kampala, Wakiso, and now, by and large, much of Buganda has had politically, I do not stop to think that anything can happen. Maybe this can be an inside, job to send fear, to make people to begin to say our only savior is so and so.
Okay.
And so we must go back there. It can be a warning politically to say if you joke around, this kind of situation will happen.
Okay.
And NRM has got that history.
Okay.
You know, in Luwero,
Yeah. So,
they were putting on army uniforms, kill people, so that the people can hate.
Yeah, someone testified to that.
So I do not want to limit
Seriously,
myself.
I think he opens a Pandora box of conspiracies now starting to fly around, that probably this could be purely a political matter, not just
security,
petty crime. This is getting bigger.
Yes, but even before I go there, I think we need to be advocating for more funding to the Uganda police, especially criminal investigations, because they probably also have a challenge in that area. Because you find, for example, the CID officer in the whole of Masaka is a huge, vast district, probably sometimes without a motorcycle.
Really?
You find police stations, they do not have quick means to move, you know. So even the firearms. We have seen examples even in Kampala where you're being attacked by thieves in the night, and you call police and they start asking you what kind of armory these people have. Do they have a gun? Say, how many guns? A pistol or AK-47? Because they are not well prepared to attack them. They do not have the necessary the response mechanism. So we also need to advocate for more funding to the police investigation department. It appears that most funding is going into maybe anti-terrorism, which is understandable. That must be funded as much as possible into civil disobedience kind of activities, trucks of water and all this. And I think that government is not really funding the criminal investigation department. So I think it is responsible for all of us to call upon government to put more funding to the police, especially locally down in the police posts and all this, so that they can ably respond to these crimes. Now about the conspiracies, I don't really want to go into discussing conspiracies, but we're in Africa where these things happen. We had a whole head of state testifying how they used to operate, you know. So what is important, I think, is to really the security service to know the source of this crime. If it is linked to rebel activity of some nature, then the response would definitely be different.
Wait a minute, Mr. Siriazi.
Yes.
We have, this is not the first time, like we said, the panga wielding, these assailants have been attacking this area for a very long time, actually years now. And actually when Chidawarime and his group were killed by the mob and all that, actually you said there were confirmation that they had links with the ADF.
For the ADF issue,
so I'm saying probably maybe we know what the cause is, or maybe government knows what is happening and they are not ready to tell us. I don't know.
Two things in that. I noticed that most of the crimes in this country, for some reason or the other, are connected. The government connects them to ADF. All the killing of the sheikhs, General Katumba, Abiriga, and Honorable Abiriga and others, usually government wants to connect those killings to the big...
Wants to connect or...
Tends, because we have never come up with a concrete report that actually these people were part of ADF. It's basically rumor mongering. They could be part of ADF. This could be part of ADF. And so it is possible that even the Masaka killings may be connected to ADF or rebel activity. But that now goes into the clear picture. What is the grievance of the ADF? Is it political? If it is political, is it possible to have a dialogue over their political, disagreements? Is it just criminal in nature? If it is criminal in nature, can we get enough manpower to quash it once and for all? Because if it is ADF, which we have had for over 20 years, and doesn't stop, then it is serious. Then you need to tackle the root cause. Have we started any kind of negotiations, any kind of fact-finding? What are the grievances?
They captured the so-called rebel leader.
Yeah, they captured.
Jamilu Mkulu is in prison.
Mkulu, but is treated as a criminal. We need to engage them to find out whether it's political.
But they are still operating underground.
Yeah, underground.
If it is, if we go by,
because it is
by what we have been told,
it could be possible to resolve this matter the way we resolved it with the
Ali Bamuzes,
Nile Bank Road and other rebel groups through dialogue and finding a lasting solution, other than being basically response every time they attack. So rather than being in this rumor mongering, it's ADF, it could be ADF. If it is, you suspect that it is ADF that has been carrying out this spate of violence for over 20 years, then it's a serious group, it's a serious concern. I think as government tries to quell down, I think it needs to create another route of trying to reach out and find out if there's any kind of dialogue that can take place between the government of Uganda and the ADF. After all, we have this amnesty law that can protect them and be reintegrated.
Yeah, even former LRA rebels are now in government.
So if they want to attach every violent criminal activity to ADF, it's also high time that they create a channel through which we try to have some kind of dialogue and find out.
Are you hopeful this is about to end? Seriously?
Yes, sir.
Are you hopeful that the violence and the attacks in Masaka are about to end?
I'm really hopeful. I think that government must come out or should come out and has the capability to quell this situation. I'm hopeful that the forces and the police forces and security forces will really rein into the situation and have it quelled down.
Well, David, probably we may dig deeper, but let me ask this question. Probably I'll have asked it later. Are you hopeful that this so-called criminal gang that started its operations and attacks were clear in actually before 2016? Now it is coming to 5 years. Are you hopeful that it will come to an end soon?
No, I am not hopeful, but I pray that the sooner it ends, the better. I do not have hope of it ending anytime soon because I have a feeling that there is something about it that we all don't know.
Okay.
You know, my colleague was talking about the police, the funding, strengthening them to respond faster and all that. And I did not stop thinking. Just a day or two back, Babi Chagulanyi, Bob Wine's Chagulanyi's wife, went to
Nakaseka, I think
Nakaseka or somewhere, for something that is not a threat in any way to anybody's life. In fact, on a program that supports life. She faced the full wrath of, of police. I come from a political party that values the principle of non-confrontation. And that has defined how we even mobilize. So we've got situations where we've been stopped by police. We only don't usually talk about this. You go to a place and you're going to meet just selected leaders, selected people, just about 20, 30 people in a community, and you want to speak to them, you want them to understand what you are and eventually recruit them. And you did not advertise, you did not announce anywhere. Not even 20 minutes into your meeting, police has come and they're telling you leave.
Yeah, maybe that is that is when you have not informed them.
Precisely.
According to the law.
And I want to pick it from that point. We've not announced. Okay?
They're able to pick that into.
But they have a network that will easily inform them that, you know what?
So that means the intelligence network is active and is alive.
And that is my problem. Anything that is political, that threatens power,
Survival.
the government will respond very effectively. The police will be very effective.
Are you suggesting that the insecurity that is going on in Greater Masaka does not threaten the survival of government in power?
You know what you're calling survival can be picked from different angles. For 23 years, there was war in northern Uganda. At a time when much of the north did not want the regime. That war, at the end of it all, worked for the regime. Today, the regime has a stronger standing in northern Uganda because the people in northern Uganda do not want a repeat of what they went through in the last 23 years of war. They are better off working with the regime. And the more they work with the regime, the more they tend to enjoy peace. So for me, who is seated somewhere and analyzing, watching these things, seeing how effectively the police is when it comes to political matters, even simple things, and seeing them not responding in that speed to matters such as this one that costs people's lives, sends me thinking. Could this be a way, I don't want to, my brother called it, not him actually, you, more like speculations. But you see,
conspiracy theory.
We have to search for answers.
Yeah, true.
We may call it conspiracy theories, but we want to look for answers. We know of countries where leaders have come and they have called it pacification and they clean. They call it cleaning. And cleaning what? People who are threats to them. They clear all of you.
Okay, I think that is criminal, and it actually takes you to Hague and all those international
precisely
ethnic cleansing or cleansing, mass murders and genocide.
So for me, when I see what happened in northern Uganda and how they have responded eventually, I relate it to what happened in Kasese and how they have responded. Increasingly.
But you shouldn't conclude now.
I am not concluding.
Let me listen to Seriazi, especially on the matter of intelligence gathering. A few minutes ago, you were talking about intelligence lacking facilities and facilitation and capabilities, actually, to collect information, to gather information and inform relevant authorities for response.
Yes.
But here, he brings another side that actually, when you engage citizens on matters of politics, then intelligence and security springs into action even when you do not announce. That shows that probably intelligence systems are awake and alive.
What I was saying is that we need to advocate for more funding in the criminal investigations of police, because they are two or they are different. Criminal investigations is also different from the political crimes. It appears like, it doesn't even appear, we are sure that government puts a lot of funding in responding to political crimes. That is why he says, and I can also testify to that, that even when you don't announce and you're just meeting selected leaders, 10 to 20 people, in the next 15 minutes there will be a police officer arriving. So it appears that there's a lot of funding.
It is what is called the police contagion. I don't know. But you can go ahead.
But that is where the antennas of government are more raised. Political opponents. That is where they're more raised. When it comes to crimes, criminal gangs, police investigations, facilitation of CID officers, it appears like government has not done much to them. That is why I'm saying that there is need to also put a lot of support, funding in the criminal investigation.
Okay, yeah, true.
But also to rebuild the relationships with the civil population. There is usually civil relationship between police and civil population to help on detecting, on intelligence collection from civilians. This population should not see police as enemies. The population should not be suspicious, should not be scared of police. They should be friendly so that they share information they have. When you have this kind of criminal activity in one area in Masaka, for instance, you cannot convince me that there are no people in the population who know the Chidawalimes of these people. People know them. People know, but they're probably not sharing that information freely, or they share it late, or they're suspicious of police. You come to give information, you are arrested also for further queries. So that is why we say that the police in its training needs to re-engage, change it to be more friendly and cooperative with the civil population. In that way, the civil population will cooperate, give information, which information will detect crime and therefore maybe even stop before it is actually committed.
Okay. We have a few minutes. He talks about that relationship between police, the Uganda police and the communities. I don't know if you can give it at least 2 minutes and we wind up. Why? And he asked a question. He asked a question actually. Is it possible for such a crimes to happen in communities? For all these, now it is coming to 5 years, and the communities do not know, cannot actually identify the culprits. But to inform you, gentlemen, from the president's eulogy that was read yesterday, he said that some of the criminals have been arrested, and now they have even identified people who have been sending them, or who sent them. You can start from there on the collaboration between police and the communities.
28 or 38 of them, according to him, according to the president, have been arrested, at least by yesterday.
But that's also another. That's a huge number, also.
Yes, it's such a huge number. But reports indicate that more people have been killed. Even this, the night just before today, before morning. So that tells you that
there are many more.
Either they are many more, or they are arresting the wrong people.
It's two-way.
Yeah, it's two-way. They are either arresting the wrong people, or it's a circumstance where there are so many people. And I agree that the police needs to step up. The community today in this country, and I know it, I do not know which part of this country you can walk to and you can ride a motorcycle 20 minutes away and you do not find a police post, a police unit. I think that from that angle the government has done well. The police is everywhere, virtually everywhere. I see in my own community, they're everywhere.
So it goes back to collaboration with communities or facilitation?
And I have watched on TV and heard and, you know, been part of it. Police officers, you find them moving around, you find them interacting with people. Of course, in some circumstances, they are chasing small criminals who stole chicken and stuff like that, but they are there. Now, I do not want to rule out the fact that police by and large is also still feared by a number of people in the community for what they do. But there was a response to that as well when the element of community policing came up and all that. And you'd imagine that they should have gone a long way in creating a normal cordial relationship with the people. But you see, my colleague here at the beginning raised very, very serious and very pertinent
As you wind up in just 1 minute?
In 1 minute. The police at the top has been militarized, and trust me, the actions right from the top trickles down. No matter the training you had, you begin to want to operate like your bosses operate. Now, the army and their training is different from the way the police is trained. So by that alone, the police force, the way it relates with the people, has shifted. Yeah, and government needs to look into that very, very seriously. Otherwise, there is no way information could fail to, you know, find its way to the so many police units that are, you know, everywhere. So I agree, and it may not necessarily be even funding. It could be just the practice. They need to do something about it. Otherwise, we will see more of these killings.
Well, 1 minute, we wind up. Your last word on this show.
Life is so important, and every Ugandan should be taken the same. When we lost General Katumba's daughter, there was full-scale investigation and, you know, response by the police. That is the kind of response I would want to see happen in Masaka.
True.
Let us not take these people to be as though they are simple people who should die and nobody should care. The way we responded to 2 deaths is the same way, in fact even more, that we should respond to 23 people. So we demand for more.
Mr. Siriazi, just 30 seconds.
I just want to thank you for hosting us here on Salt TV. I hope that the population out there has benefited from our discussion and will continue having this kind of discussion for the benefit of the whole population. But I think the issues that we talked about are very serious. One, the Masaka killings. Police needs to step up in investigations and response. The refugees, the Afghan people, our fears have been clearly said out. I think government must analyze and assess the situation better so that they do not expose this country to the conflicts where these Afghans have come from. The other issue was about
we were eulogizing.
We definitely lost a gallant son of the soil, General Lokech. But in that also, government and all of us need to start assessing whether deploying military officers to police is actually helping the police force, or it is causing a clog in that force.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Well, the dialogue is coming to a close this morning, and my name is Simapolo. We hope again to interact next week. My guests, Wilberforce Siriazi, the spokesperson for the Alliance for National Transformation. Thank you so much for being part of this show. And the Secretary General for People's Progressive Party, Alira David, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
It has been an honor. We're grateful.
Good. To our viewers, you can go to our Facebook page, Salt TV, and other social media pages. You post your comments. We'll always look at them, and we treasure your feedback. We must say it was a good one, and we commiserate with those that lost their lives, but we say, may their souls rest in peace. Good afternoon, until next weekend.